everybody. I'm used to being extremely transparent here on my Instagram, and I think that that is the main reason why you guys follow me. Honesty and authenticity are 100% the pillars of my personal brand. As much as I've been sharing my knowledge and my personal experiences as a Black female in today's society over the last few weeks, there's something pretty important that I have not yet opened up to you guys about. So I'm going to start by saying this. Very early on in this, I was very vocal about wanting my peers and folks with an online presence to speak up, stand up, and use their voice for good to help combat what's going on with this race war and what's happening to the Black community. I've been extremely mindful and cognizant with the way I communicate and my approach, making sure during these post sharing that I was never, not once, calling out anybody directly. Unfortunately though, one very prominent Canadian figure who used to be an acquaintance of mine named Jessica Mulroney took offense to a very generic call to action that I shared on my IG stories. And what happened next was a series of very problematic behavior and antics that ultimately resulted in her sending me a threat in writing last Wednesday, June the 3rd. Listen, I'm by no means calling Jess a racist, but what I will say is this. She is very well aware of her wealth, her perceived power, and privilege because of the color of her skin. And that, my friends, gave her the momentary confidence to come for my livelihood in writing. Textbook white privilege, really, in my personal opinion. So you're probably wondering how this whole thing started. And to be honest, the story is quite convoluted, but there are two main issues here of concern. Number one, Jessica never wanted to stand up and use her voice in the first place and didn't understand why she needed to. This I found quite strange, seeing that she is very vocal about supporting many causes and very open about everything else. So how could she not be speaking up about this issue that's affecting everyone in the world? Also, her best friend is arguably one of the most famous Black women in the world. I just didn't get it. Number two, I believe that she wrongly assumed that my generic call to action on my Instagram stories was a direct and blatant call out to her. Maybe this is possibly showing her guilt for her lack of action, and because of that, she began to lash out at me. During the span of about a week or so, Jessica basically ticked every single box of what a white woman should absolutely not do during the biggest racial uproar in history, citing that this really wasn't a problem that she wanted to share on her social channels, excuses that she would be bullied or vilified by the public and the media if she did so, claimed her show was more important to promote because it was going into, I believe, the season finale. And because after all, this is her job, and get this, they matter too. She tried to use my one piece of sponsored content as her get out of jail free card because I think she felt that it put us on the same playing field after she spent the first entire week of this crisis promoting her TV show with no mention of showing support or solidarity at all. But that wasn't enough. She made herself the victim and of course me the villain. a story mysteriously popped up in the Daily Mail UK, a British tabloid, last Tuesday, which would be June the 2nd. I was blocked from her Instagram account that same day, and a trail of offensive messages to me that ended in her saying, and I quote, "I have also spoken to companies and people about the way you've treated me unfairly. You think your voice matters. Well, it only matters if you express it with kindness and without shaming people who are simply trying to learn. Good luck." Now, I'm still shaking my head at this attempt and the audacity she had. Now, not only is Jessica very well aware of her white privilege, but just like her fellow Canadian Amy Cooper, she spewed out that threat so effortlessly. But I think what makes this situation really horrendous is the threat or the claim that she was going ahead and speaking to brands and companies that I potentially have worked with or currently working with or could possibly work with. And that's a threat. That's a threat to my livelihood. And for her to threaten me, a single mom, a single Black mom, during a racial pandemic, blows my mind. It's absolutely unbelievable. My impression, I think, Jess realized that she screwed up big time, knowing that everything she said to me and the threat was done in writing, and that I have the receipts. And that resulted in a lot of backpedaling, excuse after excuse through text messages for her behavior, reaching out to my Black peers and friends to prove her allyship through her association to them. I don't get it. How can you be about the Black people and be a supporter and about female empowerment on the outside when you're attempting to silence a Black woman during this movement behind closed doors? It just seems very contradictory to me. Amidst all this craziness, I remained paralyzed. Actually paralyzed in fear. That is part of the reason why I was very silent on my feed for 5 or 6 days, to be honest. I stayed up days, nights wondering, what could she be saying to my existing brand partners or people that I'm trying to work with, like my potential work, my potential livelihood. What could this mean for my career? I spoke to my parents about the situation, and they were legitimately stressed and worried about the ramifications and how this would affect me if I actually stood up for myself. I was literally up until last night, I was literally sick to my stomach, feeling like I was being fraudulent in some way, standing up for this cause and for my people on the forefront publicly, but behind closed doors, allowing this woman to silence me. Years of systemic racism and what I now understand as trained thinking actually made me believe there would be more harm done than good if I stood up for myself and said something. And you know what? Thinking that and realizing that made me really, really sad. I am raising a Black daughter. I don't want her to ever have to face any of this or to experience the things that I've experienced, especially in the last 2 weeks. And I am fully aware that by sharing this in this way, that I'm opening myself up to potential criticism, hate, bullying, but I'm willing to take that risk today. And I've thought really long and hard about making sure to incorporate some takeaways and add in here before signing off. And you know what? There's not going to be a long list of takeaways. There's only one takeaway. This shit needs to stop right now. The goal here is genuine, transformative change, not optical and performative bullshit. You cannot be posting that you stand in solidarity while attempting to silence somebody via text. I'll be damned if the next generation of Black women have to go through this. If we're going to hold businesses accountable, we should be holding individuals accountable as well. Because enough is enough. I'm openly sharing this story with you guys, really in hopes to give other women the confidence to stand up for themselves too. Thanks for listening.